Take up one right, okay, 745.
Welcome back to the Pilot Network Podcast. I'm Matt. I am so honored today to be joined by Carlos Zendejas, the Horizon Air Chief Pilot. He has been so gracious to sit down with me today and kind of talk about Horizon and what they do and the Pathways program that leads to Alaska. So, Carlos, welcome to the show. Thanks for being here.
Thanks, Matt. It's a pleasure. I appreciate the opportunity to spend a little bit of time with you and to talk a little bit about Horizon for anybody out there that's interested.
Oh, that's awesome. We really appreciate it. I guess let's start off with just a kind of a brief introduction and background of where you came from and how you ended up at Horizon.
Yeah, no problem. I've been almost 28 years in aviation now. I started pilot training in the Air Force, Shepherd Air Force Base, way back in 1992. Spent 11 years active duty. During that time, I got to fly the C-21 at Offutt Air Force Base, the KC-10 at Travis Air Force Base, and then I was a Kiesler at the schoolhouse for the C-21. And back in 2001, we were looking to transition out of the military, and that was right around the same time as 9/11. So I went into stop loss and I got really, really fortunate because a year later, Alaska Airlines gave me a call. Awesome. And so in December of 2002, I started with Alaska Airlines. Came onto the line flying the MD-80. I stayed on the MD-80 till it went away, transitioned over to the 737. And about 7 years ago, there was hey, do you mind coming in and doing some work in the training department? So I had the opportunity to do that. It's led to, hey, do you want to teach the whole day? And then it's like, yep. And then it's, hey, we have this manager line flying position open. Are you interested? So I took that, and that's a position that works right next to the chief pilot for Alaska Air. I spent about 4 years as a manager line flying for Alaska Airlines. And then after that, I had the opportunity to become the Seattle-based chief pilot for Alaska Airlines, which I spent 18 months doing that. That's by far the largest base in the Alaska Airlines system. With at that time, we had about 1,200 pilots or so. And then last October, the opportunity came up to move within Alaska Air Group over to Horizon Airlines, to Horizon Air as the system chief pilot. And what is that, 6-7 months now that I've had the opportunity to be a part of Horizon Air. And it's been a great opportunity for me, a great organization. So that's a little bit about me.
Yeah, that's a lot of flying and some pretty gorgeous surroundings there.
Yeah, definitely, which is one of the things about Alaska Airlines. You spend a lot of time flying in the Pacific Northwest with Horizon. Certainly, the majority of our flying is in the Pacific Northwest. So you got the water and the mountains and everything else in between. So just a beautiful area.
Yeah, I'll bet. So just for anyone who's not super familiar, can you kind of describe how Horizon Air got started and its relationship with Alaska Airlines a little bit?
Yeah, you bet, Matt. So Horizon Air started back in 1981. Milt Colt started the airline, and back then they flew between Seattle and Yakima and Pasco and Seattle. It wasn't long after that they actually acquired Air Oregon. I believe it was the year after that in 1982, and then in 1983 they acquired Transwestern Airlines. And so a few years later, in 1986, Alaska Airlines acquired Horizon, and that's where and there was two parts. They stayed on two separate operating certificates. So Alaska Air Group is composed of both Alaska Airlines and Horizon Air. In 2011, Horizon Air became a CPA, with a carrier purchase agreement with Alaska Airlines, where Alaska does the marketing, scheduling, and pricing of all the seats on our airplanes. Mm-hmm. We get to run the operation and maintain the aircraft for them. So we basically are in support of Alaska Airlines.
That's awesome. So Horizon flies primarily the Q400 and the Embraer 175, right?
That is correct. So right now we have a fleet of 60 airplanes, and we're going to maintain about a fleet of 60 airplanes for the next couple of years. The composition is that at this point, the majority of the airplanes are Q400. As of today, we have 11 Embraer 175s, and so therefore the other 49 are Q400s. As we proceed through this year, We are going to take a total of 16 this year of the Embraer 175s. So at the end of 2018, we'll have 26 Embraer 175s, and so we'll still maintain a fleet of 60 airplanes at the end of the year. So you can see that there will be a reduction in the Q400s, and then we'll take another 4 Embraer 175s next year. And once again, at that point, it will be about a 30-30 mix.
Oh, that's awesome. And I know one of the things just in previous conversations with some people at the company and my own research is that Horizon is really proud of technology from an aviation perspective and what you've been able to incorporate into the flight deck and provide for the pilots, especially in that area. Like the weather is pretty dynamic. Can you speak to that a little bit and what you guys have incorporated and what you offer?
Definitely, Matt. So I think Alaska Air Group in general has always been a leader in technology. And one of the things that was developed for the flying in the state of Alaska and that very mountainous terrain is RNP, Required Navigation Performance, which basically is flown using all onboard equipment. And certainly right now our Q400s have RNP 0.1, and we're working on the 175s to also get RNP 0.1. The Qs also have a HUD, and with the weather in Seattle, they're Category 3 aircraft. We're also working on the 175 so that to get it certified for Category 3 and RNP 0.1. And just to talk a little bit about RNP, if you've never had a chance to fly it, it's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
Think about a place where you only have an approach in one direction because maybe a terrain on the other side of the runway, and you don't have there's no way to have a ground-based navigation type of approach. And so what RNP technology does is it allows you to do both the vertical and the lateral navigation using those onboard systems. So now you can create approaches to that other runway where, before the only way to get in there was when you had a VFR type of conditions. And you can do the horizontal and the vertical, and the minimums are pretty darn low. As a matter of fact, most of the RNP approaches have minimums that are very similar to an ILS. The majority of them have a minimum somewhere around 250 feet or so, which is pretty amazing considering that it's all done using onboard technology.
Right.
Also does is allows you to have lower minimums on that approach as well. Because now instead of having to make your decision whether you're going to land way back so that you can go misapproach, turn around, and be able to exit that way. Now with RNP technology, you're able to get in much closer, much lower, and then should you not see the field on your go around, you can also fly that RNP track out the other direction. So it makes the approach much more safe, and it makes it so much more reliable as well. And then you couple that with the fact that we have HUDs and Cat 3 capability with a decision height of 50 feet. That makes it very reliable, especially here in the Pacific Northwest, where,
Right.
As you might have heard, it rains a little bit every now and then, and it gets a little foggy.
Yeah, you get that ground fog, that morning fog coming in, and
yeah, so exactly. And as a matter of fact, the 737s on the Alaska side, they have an autoland feature with a HUD approach as well. So they call it a hybrid approach that has minimums of 30 feet and 400 RVR. As you can imagine, That's pretty darn low. That's almost 0-0.
Yeah, that's impressive. And more importantly, that's amazing training as you're coming up in your career. If Horizon is step up to Alaska, being able to fly those Cat 3 approaches and operate equipment that has that capability, you don't get that everywhere.
No, yeah, you're exactly right. So one of the things about flying for us here at Horizon and flying in the Pacific Northwest is that you are going to go to some very challenging places. We go to Pullman and Sun Valley and Mammoth Lake and some of these places where you're going to use the RNP technology to navigate in that difficult terrain environment. And you can couple that with the fact that, hey, the runways may be contaminated. You have these difficult winds. So if you can operate in this environment using this technology, that, pretty much anywhere else you go, nothing will be as difficult as some of this flying.
Sure. No, that totally makes sense. I know you said that you have a military background, so you're kind of familiar with the military training program, and a lot of the pilot network is military, close to 90% right now. But can you kind of describe what Horizon's training program looks like and how it might compare and contrast to what a military pilot has been accustomed to in the past?
Yeah, definitely, Matt. So first of all, I just want to take this opportunity to, I know that you said the majority of the listeners are in the military. I just want to thank you for your service and your dedication. I certainly know what a career or years of being in the military, the sacrifices that come with that, and especially to the families when it seems like as soon as you get deployed, that's when the car stops working, the washer stops running, all those things happen. So thank you very much for your service. It's interesting because I think we all think we know we're ready when we come out of the military to go into a Part 121 operation. There's a lot of things that will be new to you as you join a 121 operation. Certainly the pace of it is a little bit different. If I could remember all my Air Force training, it seemed that it probably took about twice as long as it does in a Part 121 environment. Basically for us, the training is about a 3-month process, whether you're in the Q400 or the 175, where you'll come in, you'll go through what they call in-dock, where you learn a little bit about the company. And to be honest, I think that segment's kind of a blur because most people are worried about flying the airplane. And so I'm not sure a lot of that sinks in. Luckily, everything's on the website and you can find it later.
Sure.
Because what happens next is, you move into ground school where you're going to spend about a week and a half or so going over systems. Now, for us, just about all of our training is on the iPad. And so you'll get that and you'll be able to start the training a little bit earlier with all the CBTs. But there is a ground portion where you come in and you'll do systems. And from there, you move to some sort of procedural trainer. The sims tend to be more expensive. So we have a procedural training where you'll go over flows and checklists and some of the emergency procedures. And there's about, depending on the airplane, there's about 6 to 7 of those. Once you get done with those, then you move into the simulator phase. And that's typically about 10 simulator rides. The first 7 or so are what you call maneuver trainers, where you're out there, you're taxiing, you're flying, you're shooting ILSs, you're shooting RMP approaches, doing engine out, V1 cuts and all that. And that culminates in the maneuver validation, which is typically the 8th simulator ride. And then after that, you go into what's called a lawful line-oriented flying training, which is more similar to what you're going to do out on the line. It's just a normal line fly with an emergency or a malfunction thrown in there. And that leads into your LOE, your line-oriented evaluation, which is a normal line flight in the simulator where you will get a malfunction or an emergency. And that's where you'll have your type ride, where you'll get typed in the aircraft. Once you get done with that, you'll actually head out into OE, which is the operating experience, where you'll fly out on the line with a line check airman, somewhere around the neighborhood of, depending on the airplane, between 35 and 50 hours or so. And once you're completed with that, you'll get signed off. And at most airlines, the first thing you do is you sit on reserve for a little bit, but
everyone's favorite, right?
Everyone's favorite. But at Horizon, we're hiring so many pilots that most pilots aren't sitting on reserve for very long, which is nice that you're able to hold a line within a short amount of time.
Yeah.
And this whole thing takes about 3 months.
What's your standard utilization for reserve pilots?
It depends on the base you're in. It depends on the airplane. It depends on the seat. But typically, if you're used about 2/3 of the time or so is about what we use our reserves, just as a ballpark.
Sure.
So if you're on call for about 18 days, 19 days, you're going to get used about 2/3 of the time.
And you mentioned where are your junior domiciles, or where would a new hire end up?
Yeah, so our domiciles for Horizon are Seattle, Portland, Spokane, Boise, and Medford. The most junior for the first officers happens to be Medford, but like I mentioned, we're doing so much hiring that usually you don't stay in Medford very long if that's not where you want to be.
Mm-hmm.
For the captains, Medford is about the right size for captains. So we're not seeing a ton of captain upgrades in Medford. So if you're a captain, any of the other bases you can get within a short amount of time. Probably the only given that is if you're a first officer, you're going to spend just a little bit of time in a Medford base in Oregon.
That makes sense. So a big question on everyone's mind is like we talked about it before, the relationship with Alaska Airlines, and I briefly mentioned the Pathways program, and that's kind of the biggest reason that you're on the podcast today is just because we wanted to talk about what the Pathways program is, because I know it's kind of a new thing that you guys are trying out, right?
Exactly, man. We just rolled out the Pathway program in December, so we realized that you all know very well that anybody who's looking for a job right now, you couldn't have picked a better time, at least in the recent past, to be looking for a job as a pilot. Back in 2008 and 2009, when the economy went sideways, was kind of the same time as the age 65 rule got put into effect, and so. There was nowhere for pilots to go. So we lost a lot of people who would have been in the pipeline. So 5 years later, airlines are growing a little bit. People are retiring. So you start to hire, and the amount of folks that should be in the pipeline aren't all quite there. They all went off to go do something different. And so we realized that Alaska is going to need a lot of people, and they're going to hire a lot of folks. And so us being part of Air Group, our goal is to have as many of our pilots stay with the Alaska Air Group. And so in December, we implemented the Pathway program. And what that means is that Alaska has guaranteed that at least 30% of their new hires will come from the Pathway program, if not more than that. And what that means for our pilots is that when you join Horizon, when you come in for the interview, you will interview at Horizon, and you will also interview at Alaska Airlines. So a brand new pilot that we will hire will know that they also got hired by Alaska Airlines, and then they get put into the program in overall seniority order. And so then you spend some time with us, and basically there's some program requirements with some record reviews and all that. But all that means is that if you're a good employee, when your time comes, Alaska will call you, and you will have nothing else to do other than move on over to Alaska Airlines. So we're very excited about this program, and we think it's a very relaxed way to get to Alaska Airlines. It certainly sets you up with Air Group that you can come to Horizon, and that you can have that you can spend time with us. And if you want to spend your career with us, we'd be happy to have you. But if the goal is to go ahead and move on to a major airline, looks like right now somewhere around the 3.5 to 4 year mark seems to be sort of the perfect balance, because the way it has to work is that you come in Part 121 operations, you have to have 1,000 hours of second in command time before you can upgrade to PIC, pilot in command, in a 121 operation. Mm-hmm. So that means if you have no qualifying time, you will come in. 1,000 hours is about 1.5 years, maybe including a little bit of reserve time in there to get to 1,000 hours. And then before we can move somebody over, in order to sort of maintain balance, you want to have 1,000 hours as a captain so somebody else could replace you. So if you take all that and you add training time, looks like somewhere between 3.5 to 4 years or so should be about what the natural progression is from starting your career here with us at Horizon, and then having the opportunity to move on over to Alaska Airlines, and then spending the rest of your commercial career flying for Air Group with Alaska Airlines.
I know we have, the pilot network has a high concentration of helicopter and rotorcraft pilots that are coming from various aspects of the military. Do you guys, what's your opinion on that demographic and how fixed wing time kind of fits in with that progression? Do you have any like metrics or recommendations or opinions on that?
Yeah, like I mentioned earlier, there isn't a better time to be in any phase of aviation. Mm-hmm. If you want to come to commercial, this is as good a time as any. And certainly, I think there's a lot of companies out there that have a rotor transition program. I guess by the time you publish this, we'll have launched ours, Matt, just so you know. So that's
cool.
great timing on your question. We're getting ready to actually announce the program this week that we as well will have a rotor transition program. There is a big segment of the military population out there in rotorcraft, and we want to help them make the transition to a fixed wing. As they know, it takes 250 hours with a certain amount of multi-engine PIC time and the ratings that they need. So we're about to announce a program where we'll financially help those going through the rotor transition program. And that program is, if you're starting with just all rotor time, looks like it's somewhere around the 5 to 6 month mark or so before you have all the requirements to come over to fly fixed wing for commercial. And so we will, like I said, be rolling out our program this week. We're looking for a certain number. Certainly there's a lot of military helicopter pilots out there with some great experience that just need to get the requirements of fixed wing. And we would love to have them as part of our program here at Horizon. So I appreciate you teeing that one up for me.
But once the program is launched, we'll have to have you on the podcast again.
Well, that'd be great. I'd love to come back and give you some more details.
I want to be extremely respectful of your time. I just appreciate you talking with me this afternoon. But I'll end it by asking, who is your ideal candidate and what can they do to make themselves more attractive in the hiring process, or how should they best prepare? And, that goes for military, but it also goes for pilots that might be in a college training program or just getting started and they're a couple years down the road. What does that ideal candidate look like for you, and how do they end up at your door, so to speak?
Great question, Matt. So I've been involved with pilot recruitment now for almost 6 years. And like I said, hey, there's no better time to be looking for a job, certainly in the commercial sector. And what I would say is there's a lot of opportunities out there, and that's just the way it is. There's going to be opportunities probably for some time to come. So what I would say is get to know the place that you want to go. Every single place has a culture. Figure out, is that a good fit for you? Because we want you to come, and certainly we want you to be a pilot for us, but we also have to be a right fit for you. Because if you're going to be going to work every single day, we want you to be happy going to work. If you're going to spend 30, 40 years with us at Horizon, we want you to be happy here. Or if you're going to move up to Alaska, you want to be happy wherever it is that you go, and know what the company is all about. And for us here at Air Group, I can tell you, we're a smaller company, so every single employee matters a lot to us. And so there's a smaller company feel to Horizon and to Alaska Airlines. Also for us, some of the things that are very important is customer service. We got 10 JD Powers in a row. Mm-hmm. Being on time is important to us. We've let that category for a number of years now. And so those are kind of the things that are in our DNA, just as well as community involvement is very important to us. Just because we don't just donate, we donate money and time, and we're involved in just about every single community that we serve in one way or another. So those are all kind of the things that are part of our DNA. And right now with so much opportunity, you should find that place where it's gonna fit who you are and what your values are. Other things that I would say to those folks in the military and others as well is, as you're looking for these jobs, this is the time to sort of be humble and not be humble. So what I mean by that this is the opportunity to sell yourself. Companies are looking for people. Let them know why they should hire you, what you bring to their company, how you're going to make the place better. And so kind of sell yourself. And as you're going through this, try to translate what you've done in your career into something that just about doesn't matter who picks it up. They'll understand your progression and those things that you've done throughout your certainly your military career. And then when you get to the company, then it's kind of a little bit of a time to be a little humble, because I know we come out of the military with all kinds of experiences, but they're not. But Part 121 is a little different. So that's kind of the opportunity to learn from those around you, especially those that have been in Part 121, what that's all about, bidding and reserve and all those things that come from 121. So know what you want to do, know where you want to be, and then whatever those places are, go pursue your dreams.
I couldn't agree more. It doesn't matter what you flew for the last 20 years, whether it was an F-22 or a KC-135. If once you move into a new airplane, you have to respect that machine and learn the process and the company and a new environment. You don't have any of that muscle memory to fall back on, and just kind of stepping back and being a student for a while, whether you were an instructor or an evaluator, it doesn't matter. Just being able to put yourself back in that student role, that sometimes that's something that we don't expect is going to be a challenge, but that's a good point you brought up, that takes a little bit of intentionality to it.
Yeah, and it's one of those that, come to the place and learn from those around you. Take the opportunity to relax for a little bit. I mean, you're still a very important part of the flight deck, and your input is very important. But, for the longest time, most likely, you progress through your career. You're a co-pilot, an aircraft commander, an instructor, an evaluator. So now you're in this support role, but you can still be a very valuable part of that flight deck. And at the same time, take a look, learn the operation, because in today's environment, it isn't going to be most likely very long before you get that opportunity to upgrade to captain. And although you've had a lot of leadership experience and you've been there and done that, as you know, Matt, it's a little different in the airlines. So learn what the airline is all about and how the operation runs, and the responsibility of, now you're looking out for your passengers, your crew, the aircraft, and your company. So I'm very excited for all of you that are out there looking to transition right now. Certainly a lot of opportunities out there. So take advantage of that.
Absolutely. This is a very exciting time, and you've been around long enough to know that this is not the way it always has been. So we're all very fortunate to be experiencing this time right now. So hopefully everyone takes advantage, and we really appreciate that you just took the time to share some information about Horizon and Alaska and what opportunities that you provide. So just want to say thank you on behalf of the entire network.
My pleasure, Matt. Thank you so much for your time. Like I said, to all those out there in the military, thank you so much for your service, and just look us up if you're interested in Horizon Air. We'd love to have you.
Cool. And is there what's the best way that they can actually look you up? Do you have a website that they should go to?
Yeah, it's real simple, horizonair.jobs, and you can find all kinds of information on us right there, including having the ability to submit your application. And I tell you, if you submit your application, we're going to give you a call in a very short amount of time.
I know I've had a couple of people ask, and we've hooked them up with a recruiter, and they got a call pretty darn quick. So it's pretty awesome being associated and having Horizon as a sponsor of TPN. And we're honored to have you guys, and we hopefully can hook some guys and gals up with some dream jobs here. So.
Perfect, Matt. It's our pleasure. Thank you so much for what you all are doing. And like I said, good luck to everybody.